Today we are going to be using vanilla JavaScript and CSS to create a countdown clock that you can display anywhere on your website. Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevJour. Today we're going to be creating a countdown clock in vanilla.js. So let's go ahead and get our folder structure set up. So in VS Code, I'm going to create a new file. We're going to call it index.html. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this. So we have our live server running. Let me make sure I got live server extension turned on. Good. So now we got a live reload. So I want to create a JavaScript folder and a Sass folder so that we can kind of control it a little bit. Inside of our HTML, it's going to be just basic HTML5 stuff. So let's go ahead and just create our HTML5 using Emmet. And let's just call this countdown clocks. So inside of the body of our HTML, let's reference a style, a script that we're going to add here. So let's say we want to create a countdown.js. So inside of this countdown.js, we are going to control the clocks themselves. So let's go ahead and reference that here. So we're going to do JavaScript countdown.js, and that'll be referenced inside of here. So also inside of our body, we want to create the actual divs that are going to be displaying the hours, or the days, hours, minutes, and seconds. That's counting down to whatever specific time that we put in there. So let's go ahead and do, let's see, countdown clock. And we're going to do a few of them. So I'm going to label this one as countdown clock 1. And then over here, let's create a div called clock with an ID of clock 1. And then inside of this div, we want to create the days, hours, minutes, and seconds. So we're going to do div, and let's do data value equals days. And then I'm just going to copy this. So it's going to be, so copy hours, minutes, seconds. Okay, so now we have our clock 1, hours, days, hours, minutes, and seconds. And now let's go ahead and start working on our JavaScript. So the JavaScript, we're going to create a class. So let's do class countdown timer. And inside of this class, we're going to have a few functions as well as a constructor that controls things for us. So let's go ahead and set up the constructor for it. So we're going to do constructor, and I want to pass an array or an object to this that's going to be passed as part of the call for this constructor. So first we want to pass the selector, which is going to be the clock ID, and then the target date, which is going to be the the date that we want to count down to. So for right now, we'll leave it at that. We'll add some more stuff to it in a minute to control colors, but for right now, let's do selector and target date. So in the end, our JavaScript will look something like this whenever it goes to call it. So let's set up a constant variable. So const timer 1 equals new countdown timer. And then we just pass in the variables that we want to use. So let's see, our selector is going to be clock 1. And make sure we pass in the hash symbol for the ID. And then our target date. Let's do new date, and I'm just going to pass in a very specific date. So let's see, like September because it's September the 20th right now. So let's say September 21st. Let's see, September 21st, 2022, and 1800 o'clock. So military time is the time that needs to be passed. So this is what it's going to look like whenever we set it up, and then we just run, and we're going to create a function. Let's call it start timer, which currently doesn't exist, but we can go in here now and create our start timer script. So let's do start timer. And we're not passing anything to it specifically because we're grabbing these constant variables that we're selecting and adding here. So in our start timer, we're going to set a const timer, and that's going to be equal to this dot, let's see, we need to add the function, let's see, start timer. We let's create, before we get into creating this, let's create a new function here. Well, I guess let's go ahead and just create all the functions that we're going to need. So we need to have a function that gets the remaining time. So let's create a get time remaining, and in this we're going to pass in time, which will be the remaining time, so that it knows what to count down from. And then let's create another one called update timer, which this one is going to pass in an array that is going to contain the days, hours, minutes, and seconds. So now we have get time remaining, we have update timer, and now inside of these functions, they're going to be called from this start timer function that is called from our initial call to the class. So inside of here, we need to pass certain things. So inside of this get time remaining, we're going to pass the end time. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we're going to do const timer equals this dot get time remaining, and then we're going to pass in this dot target date. So now we are passing this end time into here. So if we do a console.log end time, let's see what our console is producing. Unexpected. Oh, I forgot to actually create the function here. So inside of the constructor, I set the variables, but I didn't set any values for those. So we're trying to get this target date, so we need to make sure that we have, those variables set. So let's do this selector equals selector, and then this dot target date equals target date. There we go. So now we're able to display the console log that's actually displaying the time that we are looking for. So September the 21st, 2022, 1800. So this will give us the, the date that we're looking for. So now let's go in there and actually code it to parse out those variables into specific selections that we need. Okay. So let's do a const total. And this, let me decrease this so we can see a little better. So const total, this is going to be the end time minus the current date. So let's do date.parse end time, and then we're going to subtract date.parse new date, which will just be the current date. All right, so now we have our total. So let's do const days, and this is going to equal math.floor, which is going to do our math for us, and it's going to be total divided by the amount of days. Okay, so we're going to have 1000 times 60 times 60 times 24. So that'll give us our days. So let's go ahead and do a console log and see what our days look like over here. So it's 1 day from now. If we come over here and we change this to, let's say, the 2023, we have 366 days that remain. So our math is currently working. So let's do the same thing to get our hours. So we're going to do const hours equals math.floor. And this is going to be, again, total divided by, we need to do this math first. So 1000 times 60 times 60. And then I need to wrap this in parentheses. So 60 times 60, and then we want it to divide that by 24. So it'll give us the amount of hours that are remaining inside of that day. So console log hours should produce how many hours are left before 1800, which it's roughly 8:45 in the morning Eastern time. So we're looking for 1800, which I believe is, I want to say 9 o'clock. I'm not very good with military time, but I want to say it's either 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Either way, apparently there is 1 day and 9 hours that remain. So let's also set up the same thing for the minutes. And this is going to be equal math floor. And again, we're going to do total divided by 1000. And this time it's going to be divided by 60. And then we're going to divide the whole thing by 60, which should give us the minutes that remain. All right, so we got 1 day, 9 hours, 14 minutes. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the seconds. So constant seconds equals math.floor. And again, we're going to do total divided by 1000. And then this is just going to be divided by 60. So console.log seconds. So we have 29 seconds. And if we refresh this, you can see that it's currently going down on its own. So we need to make that happen with the update timer. Before I do that, let's come up here and we're going to create this .refs, which is going to it's going to equal to these variables that we're setting up here, this data value. So inside of this, we're going to do days, and then this is going to equal to document dot query selector, and then we're going to pass in the element. So we're going to do this dot selector. So this dot selector, and then we're going to pass in data value equals days. So that should give us our the div inside of this ID. So this ID clock 1, it should now give us the data value for days, or at least be able to allow us to update it. So that's what these references are going to be for. It's going to allow us to update those in the function right below it. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the other ones. So day, hours, and I want to do days, hours. So kind of make a match. And then this one's going to be minutes. And then finally seconds. Okay, so now we have days, hours, minutes, and seconds, and these are being added to a variable called this.refs. So now, instead of logging these values out, we need to actually set them. So we're going to do return and we're going to do total days, hours, minutes, seconds. And I actually need to specify the same way, so mins and SECS for seconds. Okay, so now we have this function is created. So this is going to grab all of the information that we just had in our console. This is going to display it or allow the variables to be set. So now inside of this update timer, we are passing days, hours, minutes, seconds. So we just need to have the refs update that information. So let's do this dot refs dot days, and then this is just going to be text. Let's do text content equals days, and I'm just going to copy this for hours, minutes, and seconds. So hours, make this a little bit easier, minutes, and seconds. So now we have our update timer, we have our get time remaining, so let's actually come in here and start coding it. So right now the timer is starting, it's grabbing the information that it needs. So once it gets the information, we want to run update timer, and we want to pass in timer that we're already establishing. And then we also want to set an interval. So we're going to do set interval, and then we are going to use the arrow function, and inside of this we are going to set a const timer equals this. So we want it to run initially, and then we want it to on a timer just run and then run and then run and then run. And then we're going to do this dot update timer, which again is going to be equal to the timer itself. And I need to close this off and then do that. So now that we have that, we want it to run every 1 second. So this is telling us on line 34 we do not have reference mins. So yeah, let's go ahead and make this a little more standardized. So we got mins and seconds. Okay, there we go. We can see that it's counting down now. So 1 day, 9 hours, 8 minutes, 12, 11, 10 seconds. So it's counting down the way we want it to. So let's say that we want to, I'm going to take this out of the countdown.js. I'm going to create another file called init.js. That way we can have our class separated from the actual call for the class. So let's say we wanted to do another timer. I'm going to come in here and we're going to say, let's say timer 2 is going to be clock 2, and then I want to have that timer 2, I'm just going to put in a random date. So let's see if we can randomize this here. So let's do date.parse new date, and I want it to be let's say I want to do plus 30 times 24, and this is just going to be grabbing a random date, so you don't really need to know this code. I'm just doing it for demo purposes. Times 1000. And then down here, I'm going to do timer 2, start timer. So currently we don't have a timer 2, so let's go ahead and create a timer 2. So this is going to be countdown clock 2. There we go. Okay, so now we need to add our init.js down here as well. So now we have our init.js. So as you can see here, it is counting down to different dates. This is just a random date that's being set up over here. Actually, this one's not extremely random. There's not a randomization in it. It's just a date in the future, 30 days or so in the future, and then some seconds added, minutes added to it. Okay, so let's start working on the Sass for this. So I'm just going to create a new file called style.scss so that we can control this a little bit better. So let's do body, and let me go ahead and turn on my watch Sass so it creates this style sheet for me, which means I also need to go over here and I need to add in the style sheet reference. So we're going to do link rel equals style, so style sheet, and then the href is going to be /css, and let's just do the min version of it. Okay, so now let's come back to our Sass and let's code our body. So let's do background color, and I'm going to use my normal background color, so 38A4EF. All right, and then let's go ahead and set the color to be just a straight white. And then let's do our font size. Let's make it 16 pixels. For now, I'm just going to do text align center, and I'm just going to use a standard font family. So let's say Arial, that would be fine. Okay, so now let's actually code to make these into like blocks. So I can probably get rid of that. So our main div is called clock, and then inside of that, we want to work with the divs. We don't have any specific classes on these divs. They're just divs, and then they have this data value, which we will manipulate in just a second. But first, let's go ahead and set up the clock itself. So let's do display block, kind of center that block, and then let's give it a max width of 80%. Okay, so now each one of these divs, we want them to have like squares. So let's set a background color, and I'm just going to do like a default is going to be just like a semi-transparent white. And then let's make the default color white. I know I got it set up there where the color is white, but I'm going to make it a way we can modify those colors using JavaScript in just a second. But for right now, I think this will be fine. So let's do display inline block so that we have them set next to each other. And then let's do padding of 2 rem. And this is just me styling it. You don't have to style it this way, but I'm just styling it this way. And let's do margin 1 rem on the left and the right. And let's do a font size of, let's say 2.5 rem. And I don't like how it's constantly moving, so let's do a width, and let's do a calculation for that. So let's do calculate 10% minus 2 rem. All right, so that'll prevent it from changing width based on the number size. And just in case, I'm going to go ahead and do text align center. And let's do font weight bold. Let's also throw in a border radius. So border radius, let's say 5%. Okay. So that's pretty much a countdown time clock, but we can't see, days, or we can't see days, hours, minutes, and seconds. So we're going to take these data values that we have here, and we're going to modify those in CSS. So let's do and data value equals days, and data value equals days. And let's just see how this one looks. So let's do display block, And font size, we're gonna make it smaller, so let's do 0.75 rem. Margin top, let's add a 0.25 rem. And then let's also make it where it's not bold. So I'm just gonna put a 300 here. So currently there is no information that's displayed inside of that. So we want to display the actual data inside of it. So in order to do that, I'm just going to create another days here because we're going to change this and make it where all of these equal the same thing for the days, hours, and minutes. But for the actual after, we want to add the word days. So let's take this and we're going to do after content, and we're just going to say days. So now it's saying days. So I don't like how it's taken the other text here and it's making it small as well. So on this side of it, instead of doing just equals to days, we're going to add a little star here. We're also going to add a little star here. So something's wrong here. Data value equals days. Oh, that's because I only want to hit the after. There we go. Just want to add content to it. So I'm going to copy this, and then we're going to paste it for the hours, minutes, and then seconds. So let's change this to seconds, minutes, and hours, which means we also need to do the same thing that we've done here for those as well. So days, hours. Let's take this one and change it to minutes, and then take this one, change it to seconds. There we go. So now we can actually see what they are. I say that. What did I call it? Minutes? Oh, 2 S's. That would be why. Let's get rid of that S. There we go. So now we have 1 day, days, 8 hours, 57 minutes, 27 seconds. And both of them are working as expected. So let's go down to, let's see. Let's create some additional variables. So right now they're all, they're all the same, but let's give ourselves a little bit more control. So up here we have selector, target date. Let's also add in a background color and a foreground color. And then we can come down here and do this dot background color equals background color, and then this dot foreground color equals foreground color. And let's go ahead and just set these to null because we don't necessarily want them to be required. That way you can use the default styling, or we can customize the styling for it. So now that we have our background color and our foreground color, let's create a new function. Let's just do it right below update timer, and let's do update colors. And what we want to do is, if this dot background color is not equal to null, we want to update the background colors of the refs. So this dot refs dot days dot style background. That's not what I want. Background equals this dot background color. Okay, let's minimize this again so we can see it all in line. So now we have our days. Let's go ahead and do hours, minutes, seconds. So hours, mins, seconds. Okay, so now we have our background color. So let's do the same thing. And this is going to be changed to foreground color. So let me go ahead and select all of these. So now we have our foreground color, and then instead of background here, we're going to change this to just color. Okay, so now we should be able to update our background and our foreground colors. And in order to do that, we open up our initialize.js, and let's say on our clock 2, we're going to add in 2 more variables. So background color, let's just make this a darker color. So we're going to do RGBA, and I want to make it semi-transparent. So let's do 000.05. And then our foreground color. So foreground color, let's again do RGBA and 000.50. Okay, so now we need to call this update colors, and we're just going to do that inside of where we're doing, we only have to call it once, so we don't need to do the set interval where it changes every time. So we're just going to do update colors, and then that's it. We don't have to pass anything to it. So it's a little bit darker. You can see, you know, it's got the darker colors. Let's go ahead and create a countdown clock 3 so we can manipulate it a little bit more. So let's do 3 here, 3 here. In our initialize.js, set up the variables for it. So 3, 3. And let's say we want to do a different way to get the target date. So I'm just going to come up here and we're going to create some variables. So const start date. So I'm just showing you different ways to get the date that you want, unless you know what it is and you want to hard code it like that one. So let's do our start date is going to be new date, and it's going to be the year 2023. Basically, it's going to be January 1, 2023. And then let's do const current date equals new date get time. And then inside of here, let's go ahead and get rid of that. We're going to do new date, and it's going to be start date dot get time, then plus math, and this is just going to give us a random date in the future. So current date minus start date dot get time, which is just going to give us a random date between January 1, 2023 and our current date. Okay, so now we can initialize that timer. 3. So whatever date it is, it's 100 days in the future. If we refresh, now it's 50 days in the future. 53 days in the future. Okay, so let's also control the color on this a little bit. So I'm going to make it where, let's say D4 AF37 gives it like a little gold color, and then I'm going to pass null to this so that it turns it white. Okay, let's see, make this a little bit darker. There we go. So it helps it stand out a little bit more. Okay, so now we have 3 countdown clocks. We can change the color in it. We can, I mean, this pretty much, we can call this class and use this div structure anywhere we want on this entire website if it wasn't just the index.html. and then we can customize it inside of here. I don't think it's like responsive right now. So let me take this and I'm going to move it out so we can see the responsiveness of it. And yeah, it's definitely not responsive. So let's see, you know, an iPad looks decent, but it's not centered. So let's create our responsive style sheets just to make it a little bit better. So at media screen, and let's set up a max width of 820 pixels because that's the current screen that we're on. Do clock. And let's change the max width of this one to 90% so it spreads out a little bit more. And then the div, let's change the width of those. So let's do width, calculate, let's say 15% minus 2 rem. There we go. It makes it a little bit cleaner there. And if we, you know, change the positioning of it, it still looks good there. So now let's switch over to iPad mini. So the mini looks okay. It looks like it's centered. So I think we'll be good there. Let's switch it down to a iPhone. All right, so with the iPhone, let's change it up a little bit. So we're just going to copy this and we're going to set the current width at, let's say, I just want to cover everything that's basically smaller than the tablet. So let's do 767, which should pretty much cover everything. And let's set our max width here to 100%. Let's change this up a little bit too. Let's do 30%. Then we're going to minus 4 rem. There we go. Now let's add some margin to it. So let's do margin 0.5 rem. Let's change up the padding a little bit. So padding, and let's just do another 0.5 rem. All right, so we're getting there. So let's change our font size and let's make it 1 rem. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to copy this because we want to change up the sizing of that as well. So let's get rid of this. And we're going to change this to font size 0.5 rem. All right, that looks good. So now we switch this. Good. So now it is responsive. So let me get out of that mode. But I think that is about it. So this is a way to, you know, create a countdown timer from a specific date in the future. You can also randomize that date if you ever wanted to do that for whatever reason. You know, you can use a little bit of JavaScript. You can also change the colors of it. One thing to note is whenever you are changing the colors, if you're changing the foreground color and not the background color, you still need to add background color here, because even though it's passing it as null here, it's going to, if you don't have it at all, it's going to register your foreground color as a background color, because that is the third variable inside of our constructor. So you can't do something like this, because background color is now going to be recognized as your foreground color. But we want to pass over the background color here. So the way you would do it is, let's say we can copy this, make that null, and then just paste that where it is. Obviously that's very ugly, but you know, you get the point. So let's undo this and put it back in. But I think that's it. Pretty simple code, but it's very effective, very useful code. If you ever wanted to do a countdown to you know, a new product launch or an opening or anything like that, this is an easy way to get that on your website. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you liked it. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, because I'm currently approaching 100 videos that has a lot of information from server, PHP, all the way to WordPress, front end, vanilla JavaScript, CSS stuff. So I have a very wide range of stuff that most developers could use. So if you're not a subscriber, you know, subscribe to the channel. I got plenty more videos coming, and like I said, I'm reaching that 100 point that's coming up very soon. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.